I am here with Brad with TrailRecon. And we're actually in the KC Lights booth, which is kind of cool because I think KC Lights are really cool. They're like kind of old school. Like that's what you think of like in the old school.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool to like, you know, see they're still around. I don't know. But I've heard they're good products. But I have an opportunity today to do something interesting, and he's actually going to talk to us later on his channel about my vehicle. And I wanted to spend some time with him and talk about his Jeep, because I'm not a Jeep guy. I'm a Toyota guy. I'm a 4Runner guy. But I like Jeeps. I just didn't buy a Jeep because I bought a Toyota. But my wife is like, let's buy Lily a Jeep so that we can drive it when she gets in trouble. I wanted to kind of start out with getting a little bit of a summation of like what your channel is, like kind of what your focus is, and then a little bit of background for you and like why you're doing this with off-roading and overlanding and like whatever.
Yeah. Well, Jason, first of all, thank you, man. It's a little weird, surreal being on this side of the camera because usually I'm doing what you're doing right now. So thank you for taking the time to do this. Yeah, Brad from TrailRecon, guys. I started my YouTube channel not on purpose. You know, we bought our Jeep, my son and I, and it was bone stock, and that was the plan, was to keep it bone stock and go hit the trail and just have a good time. And we made a video one time, and folks were like, hey, where did you go? How did you get there? And so then we were like, wow, people watch that? And so we started evolving and trying to make the videos better. And then people would ask us about the mods that we did. And so then we would start filming that. And then things just kind of got out of control a little bit from there. And it's just been so awesome. I mean, the YouTube community has just been great, and meeting folks like you, it's just awesome. I've loved it. It's awesome. And building a Jeep has just been a true passion.
So do you have like a background, or did you like grow up camping and off-roading and stuff? Or is this something you kind of got into when you were older like myself? Or?
Yeah. So we started out with motocross and ATVs, and so we would hit the desert, you know, when the kids were little, and you know, take them out on, you know, CRF Honda 50s and just have a blast. And so we loved being out and away. And as they got older, you know, they grow up, and it gets expensive to kind of upgrade those bikes every year when you have 3 kids. And so it was just kind of a natural transition. So you know what? Let's just get a Jeep. Let's hop in that, and let's just go have a good time, and we'll take turns driving and having fun. And so that's kind of how it evolved.
How many kids do you have?
I have 3 boys.
You have 3 boys. Do you guys all fit in the vehicle?
We do.
And you guys go adventure?
Yeah, they're all grown now and off to college, and one's in the Navy, so it's just me, myself, and I anymore.
Okay, awesome. Well, so talk to me about your Jeep. Like what is this Jeep?
Okay, this is a 2015 Jeep Wrangler Rubicon.
Okay.
And I never intended to do any upgrades to it because it's a Rubicon, right? And so, you know, it comes with lockers and Dana 44s, and it's got everything you need to really be capable. And we did that for 6 months. But then you start doing a little harder trails, and you're like, okay, I want to put bigger tires and a lift on it. So then it just starts happening from there, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Let's start out with the tires that you have on your vehicle. What tires are you running?
Okay, so I have right now I have the BFG all-terrain KO2s,
okay.
And there's 37-inch, and
you can tell they're massive.
They are massive. You know, going to a 37-inch was something that I wasn't too sure about, because that really kind of creates a lot of other issues. You got to make sure you strengthen drivetrain and your axles and, you know, ball joints and all that kind of stuff. But I love the KO2s. You know, I was running a mud terrain tire, a different brand mud terrain tire before. You go down the road and it's noisy and it's loud, but for me, you know, we do a lot of desert wheeling and rock crawling, and so these tires work out really, really well for us. We don't spend a lot of time in the mud, so the all-terrain's a good tire for us.
So it's like a good all-around tire. And then the wheels are?
These are a KMC Machete, and they're bead locks. And I like having a bead lock because you can air way, way down if you need to. But the only disadvantage of having a bead lock is if you need to swap out a tire. You might have some challenges going to a tire shop because sometimes they won't touch them, so you got to go to a specialty shop. But I love them. They're pretty banged up. The rings are pretty banged up and bashed up, but I like them.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the benefit of being able to do that. You know the tire is going to stay where you want it to stay.
Yep.
Are they 17s or 18s? They look like 18s.
They're 17s.
17s, okay.
Yeah, and they got a 3.5-inch back spacing, so they stick out pretty far, which caused a little bit of problems with rubbing fenders and stuff. And
yeah. Talk to me about your suspension.
So the suspension, so I've gone through 2 iterations of suspension since I got it. So initially we weren't going to lift it, but then we put a TerraFlex budget boost on there, right? Because I was early on, I didn't know.
Right.
I was like, oh, let's just lift it a little bit. This is simple. And that's a good lift if you just want to get lift, but it doesn't help you with flex and all that kind of stuff. And so after time, we realized we needed to really get our suspension. I mean, we're doing some good solid trails, and we needed to get some good solid suspension. So I went with Rock Crawler's Overland kit, and their Overland kit gives you a 3.5-inch lift in the rear and a 2.5-inch lift in the front. And for me, I thought that's great because, you know, we're going to be doing the tent and the rack, and we're going to be putting all the stuff back there, and then, you know, that'll level it out once you put all that weight on there. Well, it didn't, right? So I still had this
Still a lot of weight in the back.
pretty big rake.
Yeah.
And so what I ended up doing was putting the 3.5 springs in the front. So now it's the Overland kit modified. It's 3.5 inches of lift total.
Okay, awesome. And then, so, I mean, it doesn't really even look that tall right here, but I'm assuming, and I don't know a whole lot about Jeeps, but I crawled under a buddy of mine down the street, Mr. Mike, if you're watching this, he bought a new Jeep. It's not a new Jeep, it's a new to him Jeep.
Okay.
It came with 39s.
Ooh.
And it's pretty interesting. But do you know what your ground clearance is underneath, the lowest point?
I think it's like 11.5 inches at the pumpkin.
Okay.
I think that's what I measured at last. It's been a while.
Yeah, because, I mean, I think Jeeps have everything pretty well tucked,
They do,
right?
yep.
I mean, it's purpose built, right?
Right. I still have a little Under Armour just to kind of keep some protection under there. But.
So speaking of Under Armour, talk to me about the kind of protection that you have in terms of underneath.
Yeah, so I don't have a whole lot. I mean, the Rubicon comes with some skid plates already under there for the fuel tank, and it's got a couple others under there. But I got one.
Are they pretty stout? I mean, they're
pretty stout.
They're good enough.
And I banged them pretty well. I mean, if you look under there, it needs a little refresh under there.
Okay.
But I put the Evo kit under there, so I've got an Evo oil pan cover on there, which is very nice. You got to protect that oil pan, and then I put one underneath the transmission. There's a third piece on there that goes in between those two.
Okay.
I haven't installed it yet because I'm going to be swapping out the drive shafts and all that stuff, so that'll be going on there soon.
And then in terms of bumpers, do you have I mean, it looks like you do have front and rear bumpers.
Yeah.
What do you?
So when I put the 37s on, I was rubbing like crazy, and I needed to get some clearance. So I took the plastic bumpers and I just took hacksaw and I cut them, and it was very functional, but it didn't look great. So I ended up going with Poison Spider's new bruiser bumpers, and installed those front and rear, and I really like those because one, it's a stubby bumper, but the winch is now recessed. Before my winch was sitting up halfway in the grill. Now it's it gives me a little more airflow, and it's a little cleaner look.
In the spirit of talking about bumpers, you mentioned your winch, and what winch are you running?
I have a Smitty built XR, something like that. It's not. It's a budget. It's basically a budget winch.
I'm running a Smitty build as well.
Yeah.
I think a 10,000 pound. Are you running?
I think this one's 9,500.
9,500.
Oh, you put me on the spot. I don't remember.
Yeah. Well, I was just curious. And then any specifics with line and the little thingamajigger that goes on the, what do they call it? I just put a factor 55 flat link on the front.
Yeah, that's what I have too.
Just normally, okay.
Yeah, and it came with cable originally, and I upgraded it to synthetic line.
Okay.
And I'll say, for being a budget winch, really, man, I've used the heck out of that thing.
Yeah.
For pulling me out and for pulling other folks out, and it's never let me down.
Yeah.
The only problem I ever had with it was where you plug in the cable. I had a pin break off, but I called the guys and they sent me a new one.
Let's talk about lighting, because this is obviously it's appropriate given where we are, but this has been something that I've been trying to. There's so much out there. There's so many options, and you know what? And it's more than just like throwing a couple lights out, on there to have like there's a little science behind it in terms of like types of lights and what you want and what you're doing and stuff like that. So talk to me about what you're running.
Okay, why don't I tell you what I started with, which was some budget stuff, right? The stuff you buy off eBay and Amazon, and I had some bad experiences with it because they were painted and not powder coated. So after 6 months, they started to look nasty, and I like my Jeep to look nice. And the lenses started to kind of yellow out, and I started getting condensation, and so. When you pay $30 for a set of lights, well,
what do you expect? That's
what I got, right? And so now I've got a lot of KC products on here, and they have some great technology behind them. But what I really like is that they really look nice. I mean, it actually complements the look of the Jeep because they've got that round look with the round Jeep headlight. It just fits well, and they've got the technology where they're not just pointing the LED lights straight out, they're actually bouncing it off the reflector and using the reflector as how they set the optics. It's really nice. And so when I turn, I've got the Pro 6s on the front, and they're driving lights, and that helps just to kind of give me a broad spectrum. And then on the top, I've got the Pro 6 light bar, and the 4 lights in the center are spots, and that gives me massive amount of coverage just straight down the trail. And then the 2 on the side are floods, and so that gives me that kind of side coverage. So it's really nice. I know a lot of guys like to run lights on their pillars, the A pillars. I don't like doing that because what happens is I get a lot of reflection off of the hood,
Okay.
and so it makes it actually kind of difficult to see at night. So it was something I did in the beginning. I had them on there, and I'm glad I took them off because now I don't have that issue.
So any other lighting? So you've got your front
Right.
covered. What else? Did you do anything with your standard
Yes.
low and high beams?
Yes. So the headlights are upgraded to their Gravity Pro headlights.
Okay.
So it's got it's got a standard beam in the center, which is really nice. But there's 8 LEDs around it. So when you turn on your brights, it's like having a full-blown floodlight right there. It's really crazy. And then the bumpers that I bought came with square light replacement, so I couldn't use my original round light. So I put their G34s, KC G34s in there, and a driving light, and they're SAE approved, so they're street legal. So when I turn my fog lights on,
Fog lights.
fog lights on, they're good to go.
Okay.
So, and then up here, I've got the scene lights. And that gives me, when you're out camping, that just gives me some nice coverage around the top of the Jeep. Yeah, and for as small as they are, I have 2 on the side. I probably could have just gone 1 because they just give me plenty of light.
Do you have any lights in the back, or are you more of scene lights?
No. So what I have in the back is actually, you mentioned Marco. He and I built our own custom LED strips. And so when the window comes up, there's LED strip light up there that we built ourselves. It's a great little do-it-yourself project. It's simple and inexpensive, so and it's very functional. You open that up, and now I've got camp light right in the rear of the Jeep. It's really nice.
That's awesome. So I'm going to back up a little bit, and I wanted to go back into Drivetrain. And there may not be anything to discuss here, but you mentioned the need to upgrade some of those components like axles, drive shafts, stuff like that when you go with a larger tire. And I assume the larger tire is significantly heavier than what the vehicle's originally intended to handle. Did you change any of that stuff?
Right, so I've changed a few things. I still got a few things on my list. I'll tell you what I've done so far, and that is we put some C-gusset braces on there. I upgraded the ball joints to the Dynatrac heavy-duty ball joints because the ones on there already were getting worn out pretty bad. But what I need to do in the immediate future is I need to upgrade the drive shafts to get some extra strength in there. I absolutely need to upgrade my brakes because right now I'm running the stock brakes, and when you go with a larger tire like this, it's something you need to really consider. So that is high on my list just because it's a safety issue. And I haven't re-geared yet, so I'm still running 410s, which is okay. It's not terrible, but when you're accelerating up a hill, it would be nice to have some 488s or some 515s.
So a lot of times, I get this question a lot. Hey, with the larger tires, did you go calibrate your speedometer? Do you feel like your speedometer is accurate, or do you think that's now been? I mean, is that? Am I correct in
You're correct.
assuming that that's put off by?
It's something you need to do. I actually recalibrated mine.
Did you? Okay.
So I got a ProCal programmer. It's not a tuner. It just allows you to make some adjustments to some of those things like your gear ratios and your tire size. And so something I learned, and maybe be good for other folks, is when I did that, I put in there 37 inches because that's the tire size I got. And what I found is that's not how you're supposed to do it. You're actually supposed to take a measurement of how your tire actually sits on the ground, which is not a true 37 because most tires are not their true tire size. And so they actually are like 35 and a half with all the weight of the vehicle on it. And so that's the actual one you're supposed to put in there, and that recalibrated the speedometer.
So did you change anything else with your drivetrain, or update, or modify, or?
No, but plenty to do.
Anything power related? Did you do anything to modify the power or increase the power at all?
I'm a believer in reliability.
Okay.
Right. We are out on the trail and we're remote places, and the last thing I want to do is break down. I mean, supercharger is cool and tuners are cool, but at the end of the day, I want to get back home, and so I'm not a big believer in doing a lot of modifications. I figure the engineers at Jeep have worked this out, and I'm going to put my trust in them a little bit.
How many miles do you have on it?
About 65,000.
Excuse me. Have you had any problems with the Jeep in the last few years?
None.
None?
None at all. And I change my oil regularly, I take care of it, and then I go beat it up on the trail, and it still gets me home.
Sure. Talk to me about electrical.
Electrical.
Yeah, do you have like 1 battery, 2 batteries, 6 batteries? Do you have like all these other switches?
So that's something that I've been kind of doing recently. Now, one of the first things I did when I got the Jeep was I installed an S-Pod, which is an auxiliary port that allows me to put some toggle switches inside the Jeep. And that
Which one did you do?
I got just the basic S-Pod 6-switch one. Yeah, this was 3 years ago. I didn't have all the new ones that they got now. They're pretty cool what they have now.
Yeah, I did that one because I didn't know what I was doing or what I was getting into, and I was just like, give me the cheapest thing right now.
Right.
Figure it out. We'll change it later if we want to.
Exactly. And in the beginning, I think I only had 2 of the switches ever hooked up, but now they're all full with everything. I'm not running a dual battery yet, but I think I'm going to. I actually just got a Dometic 40-liter fridge the day before we came here to Overland Expo. I've been running a 12-volt cooler forever, but you can't run a 12-volt cooler because it just runs and runs and runs, whereas the refrigerator shuts off. But I have a Goal Zero Yeti 400 with a 50-watt solar panel, and I've just got it plugged into there, and it's been doing just fine.
So you're running the fridge off the solar panel, you said? In the Goal Zero?
Right,
okay.
Correct. But ultimately, that's not ideal because that thing's heavy and it takes up space, so having a dual battery would be a better setup.
So let's move to the interior of the vehicle.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, Jeeps, they come pretty functional already, but I can already see that you've added some things like this bar thing that goes across the dash. Man, I want one of those for mine.
Yeah.
They don't make them, I don't believe. I would make a lot of things a lot easier, so I'm not drilling into my dash every time I want to mount something.
Right.
Talk to me about things that you've done and things that have changed, and or maybe even things that you didn't change or why.
Right. So the bar you mentioned is by Vector Off-Road, and it's a simple bolt-on that just goes right. There's 3 bolts. But what that does is it allows you to kind of connect things to there and kind of organize things a lot better, right? So a lot of people have things just kind of everywhere, and I'm a gadget freak. I like to have stuff on there, but I like to be organized and have it simple, right? So I have that, and then I have the 67 Designs phone mount on there, and then I have my iPod Mini mounted on there, which I use for navigation. And it's very functional for me. I really like that. Also on the interior, I pulled out all the cloth seats, and I installed leatherseats.com's leather seats, and it's kind of cool because they're silver, and so it kind of matches the Jeep. They're really kind of cool. It was a heck of a project. It's not. I'm not any kind of interior upholstery guy, but it was a fun project to do. It's a great do-it-yourself thing, so it's really neat. I love the leather seats because they're easy to clean, whereas the cloth, it would just get so dusty.
Yeah.
And so I like having the leather. It's worked out for me. I know a lot of people are like, "You want leather, your Jeep?" I've enjoyed it.
Talk to me about comms.
So comms, I have a Yaesu 7900 ham radio, and I love that thing. I got my ham license a year ago, and I was using just the Biofang for a while, but when I finally did the hard install of the ham radio, boy, capabilities now are ridiculous. Bouncing off repeaters and all that kind of stuff. It's really nice. And then I have the CB, but the CB is more for when we're out with the Jeep Club. Most people will have CBs, not only because a lot of people have the hams. So just having the CB is nice to be able to communicate with those folks. But most of the time, I like the ham. That's the way to go.
Good. Talk to me about camping. What do you have in your camping setup and why?
Wow. So this is kind of something that's been new to me. I mean, I've been a kind of ground tent guy. I was in the military, and I was stationed with the Marines for a while. Sleep on the ground, that's kind of what I was used to. So I just bought, ground tent, and that's what I did. And when I was here at Expo last year, I was sleeping on the ground.
Really?
Yeah. But I saw all these tents, and I'm like, okay, I need to get one of these. And so we put the roof rack on. I got the rooftop tent, and man, that thing is just it's really kind of changed my life, honestly, because now I get a really restful night's sleep, sleeping on a pad and up off the ground.
What kind of tent are you running?
So this is the Smitty build,
okay.
and it's a budget tent, right? I mean, it's under $1,000 for this tent, but the quality is actually really good. My only complaint with it is the mattress is a little thin, so I threw a little bit of memory foam on top of that just to make it a little more comfortable. But I'm pretty happy with it. I mean, I've had it out several times. I've had it for about 7 months now. Okay. It's holding up great. We took it to Baja, and man, that wind we had like 35-mile-an-hour winds one night. Fine, no problems.
What rack do you have it mounted on?
It's the Rhino rack with the backbone system. Okay. And I love this. It's a low-profile rack, and the backbone system.
It's a flat rack too, right?
It's completely flat, and the backbone gives you support internally. So it. On the inside of the Jeep, on the top, hard top, there's bracing inside that goes all the way down to the base of the Jeep. So all that weight doesn't go on the hard top; it's actually coming down onto the body of the Jeep.
That's part of the rack setup.
Yeah.
So the rack comes with some sort of interior support system.
Correct. You have to drill through your hard top, which. Man, that's a little bit of anxiety when you do it, but as long as you double check your measurements, everything went really well.
Talk to me about the back of your vehicle.
So the
what do
back,
you have in the back?
So the back, I've got we upgraded the tire carrier, so it's a TerraFlex heavy-duty tire carrier, and we've got the high lift jack mounted to that. So it's a nice system. I was a little late getting my tire carrier, and I'm glad I finally did it because my tailgate wasn't very happy with me. So that's been nice to have that extra strength. Inside. I've got a little more organized now. I installed Vector Off-Road's shelf in there, and that's allowed me to, instead of just cramming everything in there, now I'm a little more organized. I've got the Dometic fridge that I just mentioned. I got that brand new, so I'm learning how to use it and enjoying having some cold food this weekend. And the rest of the stuff is just some rigid boxes and some bags and all that. I would like to custom build a couple shelves, so that's kind of in the plans in the future.
Is there anything else that we didn't cover that we didn't talk about or think about?
I just installed these from Cargo Master, and this is a nice little step to help you kind of get up there when you're doing your rack and stuff and set up your tent. So that's made life really nice. Air compressor, I have a ARB single air compressor in the front, so that helps reinflating the tires, but also runs CO2 because with 37s, you got that CO2 on it, it fill right up after hardly on the trail. So that's
really
nice. Yeah.
So you have a CO2 air compressor, like CO?
It's CO2 bottle, so it's a 10-pound CO2 bottle.
Okay.
And you know, if that single ARB compressor, boy, it would take me 3 minutes per tire to fill up. Whereas I turn the CO2 on, it takes me 30 seconds to fill up the tire. It's pretty
Really?
nice. The CO2 compressor, it's got a regulator on it,
Okay.
and you know, you have to fill up the bottle every once in a while. So I can get maybe 3 or 4 trips on it. It's basically you hook it right up to the bottle and then straight to the tire. And so you can even pull the bottle out and fill up the tires. You can also use it to run air tools if you want to, which is really nice. So it's very functional.
So the compressor you use for backup.
Yeah, the compressor.
Otherwise, you use the CO2 bottle to just fill the tires.
Right. When I was running smaller tires, the compressor was perfect. But then it was like bigger tires takes way too long and it'll burn up that compressor. So that's why I went with the CO2.
Yeah. Learned something new today. Brad, I really, really appreciate your time. Thanks for letting us, spend some time with you and talk about your Jeep Wrangler. I know a lot of you guys are Toyota guys. I also know a lot of you guys are Jeep guys. I'm not really. Well, I'm a little bit of a brand loyalist, but I'm not like a brand elitist. Maybe is a better way to put it. Sure. I like Jeeps. I've always been a fan of Jeeps. 4Runner was better suited for me, but this is cool, and this is an awesome opportunity. And I really appreciate your time.
Yeah,
and of course, if there's anything I can do for you, let me know.
Right on, man. Thanks. You for taking time. It's nice to meet you, brother.
Yeah, man.